For the 90s. 1990, 23 foods that make us nostalgic for the 90s. 1990s nostalgia is now prevalent in music, film, television, and fashion, and many millennials who came of age in that decade are now taking to the world stage. There are even a lot of foods that remind us of the 90s, and since we were kids in those days, a large portion of them are snacks, candy, desserts, and other unhealthy foods that we thought were the bomb back then. Here are 23 foods that make us nostalgic for the 90s. 1 of 23. Bagel bite. Pizza in the morning, pizza at night, pizza at dinner time. When you're eating pizza on a bagel, you can have pizza anytime, and we really lived up to the lyrics of the ubiquitous Bagel Bites commercials from the 1990s. Although you can really eat them at any time of the day, our favorite time to munch on these bagels was at breakfast or in the wee hours of the morning. 2 of 23. Big League Chewing. We're honestly surprised Big League Chew is still on the market, because even as minor leaguers in the 90s, we knew it was chipped gum to mimic chewing tobacco. We're not sure if it's addiction or nostalgia, but we still feel a little pinch in our cheeks whenever we see a package of Big League Chew for sale today. 3 of 23. Boca Burgers. Before we had Impossible Burgers, Beyond Meat, and Corn, there was Boca Burgers. First launched in 1979, Boca Burgers rose to fame in the 90s during the short-lived veggie burger craze, which also included black bean burgers and portobello burgers. The fad faded, but returned about 25 years later, and Boca Burgers managed to survive through all the ups and downs. 4 of 23. Bubble Bar. The Bubble Bar was a bad call for kids with no limits. A 2-yard roll of bubble gum knew nothing of dosage, and so we learned nothing of the matter. Perhaps it was a good thing that Hubba Bubba, a subsidiary of Wrigley, discontinued bubble tape in the 90s. But don't worry, nostalgic candy fans, it's finally back after a 10-year hiatus. 5 of 23. Chef Boyardee. The Chef Boyardee brand was founded in 1928, but was still very popular with kids in the 90s. Whether you're a fan of ravioli, beefaroni, spaghetti, or any other pre-made pasta, your parents probably kept cans in the pantry for a quick meal that can be made in the microwave. Believe it or not, the company was founded by an actual Italian immigrant with a name similar to Boyardee, except he spelled it Boyardee. 6 of 23. Doritos 3D. The 90s were a strange time. With the year 2000 fast approaching, we were all looking for the new millennium and obsessed with anything that looked futuristic. Now is the perfect time for Frito-Lay to introduce Doritos 3D, a puffed-up version of the two-dimensional nacho cheese tortilla chips. 3D Doritos were dropped in the US while the 21st century was still very young, but have since been revived. 7 of 23. Dunkaros. Dunkaros has made a comeback in recent years. After being discontinued in 2012, these little packets of cookies and frosting made a comeback in summer 2020 with much fanfare, lifting the spirits of many stuck at home amid the global pandemic. Now you can not only get the classic Dunkaros snack, but also Dunkaros cereal and yogurt. 8 of 23. Egg waffles. My Lego Ego. By the 1990s it was a catchphrase, even though Eggo waffles were first introduced in 1953 and the slogan was coined in 1972. As experimental varieties such as fruit waffles. 9 of 23. Freeze Pops. The best way to beat the heat on that steamy 90s summer, enjoy a cold ice pop. Also known as freezes or freezer pops, these treats were invented in 1963 and have grown in popularity with each passing decade. Pop Ice was the first company to make them, and a few years later they made Gel Certs FLA Vor Ice. Otter Pops emerged in the 1970s, but the company was acquired by Gelsert in 1996, establishing the latter as America's largest producer of freeze pops. 10 of 23. Fruit next to the foot. Fruit by the foot is one of those snacks that are made for play. Created by General Mills in 1992, fruit by the foot stretches a full 3 feet long when unrolled, meaning the strips can be tied into bows, wrapped around fingers and arms, and suspended in the air like a lasso. He swung, among other insults. Despite having fruit in the name, they are far from healthy, but at least they no longer contain artificial colors and flavors. 11 of 23. Fruit roll-up. Fruit roll-ups actually first appeared in the 1980s, but hit their sweet spot, pun intended, because they're pure sugar in the 90s. If you think of the aforementioned fruit by the foot as an edible measuring tape, fruit roll-ups are like eatable sheets of paper. Or, in some cases, edible transfer paper, as you could and still can buy a variety that includes temporary tongue tattoos. 12 of 23. Go-Gurt. In 1997, Yoplait first introduced Go-Gurt, a drinkable yogurt served in tubes instead of cups. Between the unique containers, the bright-colored packaging, and the fun flavors, Go-Gurt was a hit among kids. It still exists today, and can even be bought abroad under the names Yoplait Tubes Canada and Fribs UK. 13 of 23. Gushers. Fruit snacks with flavored liquid sugar inside, yes please, said the younger, elementary school versions of ourselves back in the early 90s. Although we probably weren't that polite. Gushers are still going strong today and are still being produced by their original company, Betty Crocker. 14 of 23. Hot Pockets. Despite the Hot Pocket name clearly stating that the contents of each calzone are likely to be hot, we still burned our mouths countless times back in the 90s. As we got older, we discovered that lean pockets are better for our diet, so we burned our mouths on those for a few years. Now we wouldn't even think of eating a Hot Pocket, we just buy them for our kids to eat instead. 15 of 23. Kid cuisine. TV dinners were invented by Swanson back in the 50s, but it wasn't until 1990 that Conagra Foods first rolled out kid cuisine. This was a game changer for youngsters like us, who finally had a TV dinner that seemed like it was actually designed by kids, with options like chicken nuggets, hamburgers, and pizza, all of which also came with a dessert, of course. 16 of 23. Lunchables. We were snacking on Lunchables back when they only included crackers, a few slices of meat and cheese, and a tiny candy bar. That time frame, for the record, was the early 90s, as Lunchables debuted nationally in 1989 and didn't start offering other options like pizza until the mid-90s. 17 of 23. Molten chocolate cake. The exact inventor of the molten chocolate lava cake, a chocolate sponge cake filled with liquid chocolate, is up for debate, but at least we can all agree it was created in the 1980s. That explains why every eatery from fancy 5-star restaurants to nationwide chains included it on their menus in the 90s. Once the novelty wore off, people realized you can easily make this dessert at home with the use of a ramekin. 18 of 23. Pizza rolls. Sure, pizza bagels in the morning, Lunchables pizza for lunch, and Hot Pockets for dinner are great for a typical day, but what about when you just need a pizza snack? Enter Totino's pizza rolls, which first dropped down from heaven in the early 90s. Well, actually these tasty snacks were invented in 1968, but after numerous rebrands, it was in 1993 that they became the Totino's pizza rolls we know today. 19 of 23. Pop Rocks and Fun Dip. We will group Pop Rocks and Fun Dip together, as they are both essentially small pouches of flavored sugar. The difference is that the former crackles when you eat it, and the latter comes with a stick called Like-A-Stix. Eating Pop Rocks mixed with fizz soda is also what killed Mikey, the Life cereal spokeskid, according to a now debunked urban legend that was popular in the pre-internet 80s and 90s. 20 of 23. Ring Pops. It's a lollipop, without a stick, a ring of flavor you can lick, at least according to the jingle for these wearable candies that rose to popularity in the 1980s and stayed strong into the 90s. Ring Pops had some truly delicious fruit flavors that made them worth buying, even though they occasionally made your hands sticky. But hey, at least they were a nice complement to candy necklaces which were invented a few decades prior. 21 of 23. Stuffed crust pizza. Okay, one more pizza entry. Clearly, people were obsessed with pizza in the 90s. In 1995, Pizza Hut forever changed the world by introducing the stuffed crust pizza. They even had a memorable ad campaign that encouraged patrons to eat their cheese-stuffed pizza slices crust first. We tried it that way, as instructed, but after discovering the crust to be the best part, we would always save it for last by eating slices the traditional way. 22 of 23. Toaster pastries. Kellogg's invented Pop-Tarts in the 1960s and Pillsbury introduced toaster strudel in the 1980s, but the toaster pastry rivalry really seemed to heat up, no pun intended, in the 90s. Pop-Tarts and the snack sticks that were briefly available in the mid-2000s was a common post-school snack for us, and both were part of our chronically unbalanced breakfasts. 23 of 23. White chocolate. Remember when white chocolate had its moment in the 90s? Suddenly, it seemed like Americans couldn't get enough of the stuff, which included product launches like Hershey's cookies and cream bars, as well as their white chocolate kisses. White chocolate might not be as popular today as it was in the 1990s, but at least it now has a holiday, National White Chocolate Day, which is celebrated. 23 foods that make us not